Hi, I'm the M Professor. I'm not the M Professor because I've never been able to fit in any one field to complete a degree. I just keep on learning my whole life. I'm 63 years old and I'm a scientist and historian, rationalist, philosopher, other things. I won't get into all that. But I've been listening this morning to, while I was making my pancakes, I put on a video I saw about the Hiawatha crater again. I just looked up something else. We'll see what was in the same search on YouTube. And there's always a lot of junk videos. Whatever you're looking up, there's all these junk videos that are trying to, make extrapolations off it. And that's fine, the hysterical stuff, I would call it. And not disparagingly, I understand where they're coming from. They're trying to make sense out of a scientific community that is conservative, right? And takes a little while to change. Anyway, I won't criticize them all. I see other things which I've commented on the NASA video and also on the climate state one about the Hiawatha crater. But I was watching, what was his name this morning? There was one guy who just immediately launched into so let's get my other great expert here from some other YouTube channel. Let's sit and talk about this and, just talk about it. They don't even know anything with the further background. So anyway, the climate state one was interesting, and they didn't know the history that I know and the hidden history that I know, the lost history of the before Egypt and stuff. And I'm not claiming anything really strange there. But there was a history called Berassus. Now, if you look him up on Wikipedia, Berasos, you'll find him as there, thanks to the great College of Unwisdom that is Wikipedia deciding that would be the name. A common name in history, as known to a large publication I once held in my hand from the Masons, which no one should have seen, but was at Bond's Books in Vancouver. It was a few inches thick. It was leather bound. It was a beautiful book, and it was the history of the world by Berassus, under the spelling Berassus, which is the Masonic spelling. And I'd seen it before it might have been a Trevor Lawton's column or someone else of the Vancouver columnists back in the 70s and 80s, writing about this, that it was a history of the world going that far back, 100,000 years, they said. Now, I held it in my hands, that book, so it exists. But when you go ask about it, including to a senior Mason I thought I told the book about, who says he never saw it, okay. I thought I told him about it, go get it, but no, he just immediately referred me to the Berassos spelling on Wikipedia guy, which only starts in Egypt and Sumer. Oh God, no. So what I think is in Berassus, other than all the other things I could mention, but of what's, I could go on about Giraffe and Thrace and stuff, right? These earlier civilizations, the drowning of Dwarka, but the drowning of Dwarka ties into my point about the Hiawatha Glacier. So now there's this date from the video I just watched this morning, which wasn't a TED Talk, 12,800. And so anyway, this is in this guy, just good information, Bright Light, that's the name of the vlogger, okay? But, I get tired of all the videos that immediately start talking about how there's this scientific conspiracy to repress information. No, the scientific community is just extremely cautious. Yes, they do have vested interests in not admitting to change, in not admitting I lost my selfie stick. So that's why it's jerky. Let me stabilize my arm here. There we go. Or no, has that stabilized it? I don't know. So, anyways, so what? So what if they did repress Galileo, and you could go on all about all the tribalism you want? No, it's not tribalism in academia. It's something other than that. It's just extremely, extremely orthodox conservatism. It took a long time in the 19th century for Darwin to get accepted. Remember that. Right? It didn't happen overnight. He's still not accepted by the fools. But never mind the fools. The fools are irrelevant. But the fools who go on about oh, this is some massive conspiracy to repress the truth for the people. Well, no. It's because the scientists are all into. This is where I'm coming from as a generalist, and I have the authority to speak about this because I know science, I know history, I know mythology, and all mythology is true in some way. And yes, the 12,800 date is very definitely the date when there was a huge impact on the North American ice sheet in its northern end, right? And there was a massive worldwide, smoking gun on the ground. It's just like the dinosaur extinction, and it wiped out all the animals in North America. This is in your video, Bright Light. I liked it. But then you go start talking about, first you go on about all the paranoia in the scientific community, and, oh, just get tired of all that stuff, man. Grow up, right? Understand that what you got to do is present your evidence, shut up, and then don't, inevitably, like the other guys, immediately that had his guest on, I can't remember what his name was, I down channeled it, but unlike the channel, I don't need to see that shit about people going on. Well, immediately they go on about the paranoia in the scientific community. If you want to support this, then give me more for Patreon or support my whatever. You buy my T-shirt. Oh, geez, yeah. Like Graham Hancock has a lot of good things to say. Graham, he and I should have a little chat. He doesn't know me yet, and I'm just sort of starting at the vlogging world. Uh, but I know a lot of things and I can integrate things a lot. And now, in the case of the Hiawatha Impact, 12,800. Okay. I thought maybe 10,500 because that's approximately the date of the legendary? No, I don't think legendary. The date of the extirpation of Atlantis. But that would have had to do with the collapse of the ice caps, and other aspects of that legend, and also of the pre-dynastic civilization in Egypt, which now demands a dig because of the Hiawatha crater. We want to know what lies under dynastic Egypt. We know there's things down there underneath Hawara, and the Egyptian antiquities won't allow them to be excavated. So that's another matter. You're dealing with political infrastructure problems, including in funding for archaeology. It's like Norse research in the Canadian Arctic. The federal government doesn't want to do it because it involves sovereignty issues. That's why it got down. That's why it gets downplayed, and why it gets shunted aside, and why there's no more funding for Codroy Bay. It's not just Point Rosy, the site which they decided wasn't a Viking settlement, but there are legends at Codroy Bay about a ship, that appears in the water, sometimes in the sand, sometimes in the sandbars there. And it fits the description of a place in Vinland saga called Hope. Hope. I don't know, H-O, with an accent on it, P. I don't know, maybe again, Dr. Jackson Crawford from Colorado can help me with that, about that place and the description of it. And Codroy Bay fits it perfectly, right? But there are no hazelnuts there. But that doesn't matter. Anybody living at Codroy Bay could have easily trotted over to the other place, Gaspé Bay or New Brunswick, and gotten some. They were probably trading with the Indians around the Gulf. More from Codroy Bay than they would have been from Vinland. Apparently, Hope was a peaceful settlement. And there's all these stories about blue-eyed Beothics and blue-eyed Abenaki, blue-eyed Montagnier. That I won't go on about that. That's not the Hiawatha crater topic, but I could easily go on about that. About this is the kind of history that takes a while for people to accept, right? So fine, grow up about that. Grow up about it, and don't rail about it, and then go talk and say, but I go on about. I need Patreon too, but I'm going to try and provide information in my videos or useful critique like this. Which bright light, I'm trying to help you. Just stop ranting about how the scientific establishment is conservative. Present the evidence and tie it together. So I'm going to continue tying it together now. So 12,800, they know there was an impact event. It's the Hiawatha impact thing. And, oh, yeah, some guys named it Enki, after a Babylonian god. Well, I tell you what, it didn't hit Babylonia, idiot. So whatever it deserves to be named, Hiawatha crater it is. That's what it was named when they found it. Leave it at that. It's a North American name, not a Middle Eastern one. So anyways, Hiawatha as a meteor did some awful damage, right? But it created, now think about this. We know about Lake Agassiz. Now, the Great Lakes, which are only like 5.4 million cubic meters or something like that, and the volume of the ice cap was like 200 million or billion 200 million cubic miles or something of water that was in the ice, the Greenland, Laurentian, Cordilleran ice cap, which spanned from the coast mountains of British Columbia all the way to Greenland. Yikes. Yeah, it was cold. But I think maybe there were things in between that were open. I don't know, certain things I don't know. But down all the sea levels were a lot lower, so the migration route from Asia would have come along the coastal plain down to British Columbia. It wouldn't have come down any ice-free corridor. Yeah, but they didn't know that. When they came up with the ice-free corridor, an idea you still hear coming out of academia, it didn't exist. They don't talk to the geologists. This is what I was saying about being a generalist and seeing all the fields at once and wanting to know what's in Borassus, because you have, after that time, 10,000, there's also the building of Göbekli Tepe at the same time and the founding Haran in Upper Chaldea, which is the area where Syria and Syria and Turkey near Syria, and partly Syria also, that whole area. Ugarit's also in the same area where writing cuneiform first appeared. I won't say writing because giraffe and Thrace appear to have had a symbol system that's like the Indus one. It just hasn't been cracked yet. You know, like the hieroglyphs. It's the same kind of thing. We now have an ancient known archaeological record of some major civilizations or major constructions like Göbekli Tepe going back at least 10,500 years. We're probably older, right? If we started looking right under Egypt, you know, and then we know that there is actually there's an old legend that the Nile originated in the Atlas Mountains. And well, there is an old river that flew from there to the Nile. You know, like the whole oral tradition preserves a lot of knowledge that gets dismissed by the rational published scientific community, the same way that they dismiss Western herbology, and by burning all the witches, as all the women who knew, and the alchemists and all the others who knew all the herbs of the lore, the different plants and you know things to do for healing and health, right? So that was preserved in the East. It's not very pretty, is it? Chinese medicine? No, not at all. But in the West, no, they weren't cutting off grizzly bear penises and using them as tonics, no. But anyways, they're not what the Chinese do, but they take the gallbladders, it's gross, and other things. I won't get into that. But Hiawatha now, I'm going to continue about this because we know that in 6000 BC, that the ice dam between Labrador and Greenland across Davis Strait, that it broke. It collapsed. So behind it was Lake Agassiz. Why did Lake Agassiz melt? Well, it seems pretty clear why Lake Agassiz melted now, didn't it now? Yeah, it seems pretty obvious now. 12,800 is when it melted. Now, the pressure of the melt would have caused other melt, changed the albedo. That water would have warmed, melted more. And the pressure of the water on the Davis Strait ice dam, so it must have still all against the Beaufort. It wasn't melting in that direction. It was all just where Hudson Bay is, and the Great Lakes are the puddles, and that includes Great Bear and Great Slave, like Winnipeg, like Athabasca, like Winnipeg Oshus, all those others that people don't think of as Great Lakes, like Nipigon, you know, but they're all part of the Great Lakes system, and Great Bear is the largest and deepest. Or is Great Slave the deepest, but Great Bear is the largest. But they're just puddles. They're just puddles left over from Lake Agassiz. Lake Agassiz stretched almost to the Rockies. It stretched like to Drumheller. It stretched to the Black Hills. It stretched to the Appalachians. It covered all of southern Ontario. Covered all of that. And it left go, and like Manitoba is the remaining lake bottom, and Minnesota and the great high flat of the Dakotas, you know. That was all meltwater from the Hiawatha impact that got stuck up behind that dam across the Davis Strait. Let's call it the Davis Strait Ice Dam from now on, because the Americans, the scientists, they don't start making up terms like they need to. But it collapsed in 6000 BC. Now, if world sea levels went up by 200 meters, what was the height of the lake behind the ice dam? You hearing what I'm saying? So we don't know the size of the ice cap in southern Greenland and on Ungava at that point, but it was probably pretty deep, right? So when the sea levels came up by 200 meters, that's a lot. Lots of things disappeared. Who knows what off coastal North America? Really? Seriously? We really don't know. We know about the proto-Mayan civilization that's in between Cuba and Florida in the trench there that seems to have collapsed tectonically, but it may have also had to do with rising. I'm not sure what happened there, rising sea levels. But it's down, it's been submerged. There's Dwarka in the Gulf of Cambay off India, sort of south of Bombay, quite a ways. And it's the size of Manhattan, and it's a rectangular grid temple city. And it's the city of Krishna. The Mahabharata turns out to be true. So also the Sarasvati River has been revealed as having existed by satellite studies, right? And it's very important in the Mahabharata. I wish I should read now, the Bhagavad Gita, all that stuff. I really should read it all now. But again, back to Barassas, because what else is in there? Because Jiroft was in Iran in 8500 BC. The Thracian civilization rose 5500 BC. Oh yeah, so what happened just before 5,000? What happened in 5000 BC, just before 5000 BC, in that 1,000 years there after 6000 BC? Because it was 5500 BC, I think that's the first things around Varna and the Kogaran and other places in Thrace
were founded, and that 11,500 was that stone ruin Nurshun in Ukraine. Oh no, I guess it's the lower Dniester. I don't know which river, Dniester. I'm not sure which river it's near. Anyway, it's a big stone ruin. It's like Stonehenge, only bigger. But it's calendrical. But of course, it's calendrical. The sky had moved. That's why Göbekli Tepe bit. If it's astrological at all, because that's the homeland of astrology, where Göbekli Tepe is. It's astrology, the study of the stars, chemistry. It's also where vegetarianism came out of. That's where Pythagoras had studied, and also Euclid. Greek science came out of that area. These were people who studied the stars and the earth, And Egypt. This is where the great library of Thoth was, and now Thoth, of course, became a god in Egypt. And he's Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus. He's also Hermes, great messenger and keeper of knowledge, right? So there's a great library hidden in the sands there, unless the Mongols destroyed it with the Temple of the Seven Planets. But I think it might not have been. I think maybe just buried. The Mongols wouldn't have known to destroy it because it's subterranean. Anyway, like Hawara, it's one of those things that doesn't get excavated because there's no money. If I do a Patreon, Bright Light, well, I would ask for funding to go to a place around and dig the Temple of the Seven Planets and find out what's down there. And also to go find out there in Patreon world, there's got to be a Mason or two. And you must have heard of the history of Brazos in your local Masonic library. And, do an old man a favor and go look up some things for me. The rising of the Black Sea. So where was the Black Sea civilization before the rise of Thrace? Okay, so there's all kinds of stuff. Doggerland disappeared, and there's a story about the Fimbulvetr and the destruction of also of Lyonesse, and also of Avalon. There's also Asgard, though I have other theories about that, about the great years of darkness in 541 AD. So 537, 541 AD, which was another proto-cataclysmic event like what happened in 12,800 and also 6,000 BC. Though what's that 6,000 years in between there? Well, remember that not just the Hiawatha fell. I don't know if there's meteorites found on the Great Barrens or around on Gava, but there's probably other chunks that came down, melted other pools, but it unleashed everything, like the Cordilleran ice cap and stuff. When the Missoula floods are from that same period, So anyways, the Age of Cataclysms, I call it, and also the famous book from Conan, from the fall of Atlantis to the rise of Sumer and the kingdoms of Egypt and Sumer, when kingdoms were scattered beneath the stars, like stars between Zeus was, and Conan crushes him with his boot. That's the line. But the Hyborian Age, for the period from the 10,800, let's call it 12,800. Maybe that's Atlantis too, because where was Atlantis? We don't know. It'll be found if this wasn't obliterated, but it's probably either underwater or land has changed. We haven't recognized it yet, just like we didn't recognize a lot of things that have been found since. And they're only just now with Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa starting to know Giraffe has only just begun, and so much was looted. Oh my God, if Giraffe had been found by a real archaeologist back 40 years ago before the grave robbers did, oh my God. And the same with China, same with India. And India's been ravaged by war so much, But anyways, yeah, so Doggerland disappears, the Black Sea disappears, Dwarka disappears. I don't know, Indonesia separates from the mainland, and all Indonesia becomes a series of islands instead of a mountainous continent, capped by New Guinea, and the Antilles, the Caribbean islands, and they were all linked. There was a lot more to Mexico at the time, a lot more to the Gulf of Mexico. What's under the Gulf of Mexico? Down in the basin? Who knows, right? It's deep water, Anyway, so 6,000 BC, that's the first wave, but there was an earlier flood in 12,800, they know now. I have to look up by how many meters it came up by. But that 6,000 years in there, it could have been just the amount of time it took for the accumulated meltwater effects and the pressure on the ice dam to start eating away at the ice dam, the warm water. There's no thermal activity and the geothermal activity up in that area. So what eventually caused the break of the ice dam? I think it might be just the pressure of the water and its effect on how water melts ice, and there must have been a reason why it didn't freeze in the winter. That water must have been boiling for a while, maybe. It took a long time to cool off because water holds a lot of heat, right? It doesn't necessarily freeze overnight. A place of that size, it might have an ice sheen on the top of it. But Lake Agassiz probably had an ice sheen on the top, maybe a foot thick even, but the rest of it, because water holds heat, after the Hiawatha impact, it makes perfect sense that it would still stay liquid for a while. But eventually, on the side facing the Atlantic, I have to look whether the Greenland ice sheet extended over to Spitsbergen, and Iceland. Was there an Atlantic ice sheet to back up the Solutrean hypothesis that they came across the limb of the LIMN of the North Atlantic ice cap in order to get to North America, because there's definitely everything from DNA to other signs of early evidence. So we have a major, as they call it, an extinction event, 12,800, a semi-extinction event in 6,000 BC. Now this is why I want to see Boreasis again. So it's crazy talk, because everybody says, no, it's only that one thing I'm talking about, a Masonic book. Everybody thinks, oh, no, come on. You guys, Masons are connected to the Library of Alexandria, right? Their origins lie there. They lie in the priesthoods of Egypt and in the cults of Thoth. They are the scribes, the upper echelons. They're protectors of secrets they're dangerous for the rest of the world to know. They've been keeping the secret of the ancient times that's in Boreasis from the world, that was burned by the Romans, burned by the Roman Church. God knows what was burned during the conversion, other than priests and priestesses and nuns. And I don't want to go on about the destruction of the conversion. Christianity and the Romans weren't the only ones that destroyed things. The Chinese emperors did a lot too. India, well, Islam kind of had a number on the great civilization, Buddhist civilization founded by Ashoka and the Bactrian Greeks. It was a hybrid culture of East and West. That's the Ashokan Empire. And we always talk about as only Roman Empire existed. Oh my God, the Western bias in anything. When you look at anything, including views of the Mideast, is so. If you guys in vlog world want to complain about something, don't go on about, oh, look at this, we're right, because they've always said that since they got after Galileo and Copernicus, because they were right, that means we are. Oh, please, just present the evidence and talk about it and discuss the evidence and try and tie things together, which is I'm trying to do. So the geological record is there. The zoological record is there. The astronomical record of the meteor is there. The impact crater is there. We know about Lake Agassiz. We know about Doggerland. We know about Dwarka. We know about all these places. But often the scientific community, like the Pisa Goddard video, the NASA Goddard video about this, didn't tie in any of the known human history or any of the legends. They didn't even talk about, other than the general one of the flood, same as the one I just watched from Bright Light. That they're not talking about the details. They just go on. They mention the one thing and they go on. But there's always more information. But start thinking, brothers. Sisters. If whoever I notice it's mostly men doing this stuff. Not always. New Earth. I like the Russian lady who does New Earth, and I'd like to go to some of the places she shows. I'm sure glad she shows what she shows, but she does the same thing. She goes on about. She talks about the bitchiness and the conservatism of the historical and academic community. Well, that's only natural. They're tenured people protecting their jobs, same as union guys on an industrial site like the Site C in northern BC, or who want to work on the pipeline. The same thing. Now I'm going to turn this way so you can see where I've been living. That won't be my view from now on. After I'm getting there, there you go. That's the Fraser River, just upstream from Port Haney, where I live. Port Haney's down to I'm looking sort of straight ahead. Down to the right, there's Port Haney, where there's the wharf and the little bar and the train station. But across that stretch of water there, the Hawaiian village used to be on the left at the mouth of Kanaka Creek. You can't see it, but on the right, in the forest, behind the forest to the right of the Derby Reach Regional Park, that was the original Fort Langley. And where else am I looking now? Maybe that's what I should have had you looking at. I don't know where I was looking at there. That's the river there. So I don't know what I had looking over my shoulder there. So that's going to be not my view anymore as of February 1st. I'm moving to a place in the Fraser Canyon, little trailer, field out back, crazy neighbors next door. And crazy, but probably nice. Everybody's really friendly. It's drier. It's the heart of British Columbia history. I'm looking forward to being there, and I'll be vlogging from there. Including, I'm going to try and get Nick Sentner up, huge floods to come up from Washington, and, we'll discuss Hell's Gate and stuff and show him around the canyon. The history of the Fraser Canyon, where I'll be living, is part of the history of the United States that most Americans have no idea about what happened here. Same as the Queen Charlotte's, the Haida-Gwaii War in 1850. There's big events that happened here, and Americans played a really important part in British Columbia history in terms of as settlers also. Certain individuals that I'll do vlogs on once I find out enough about them. Transportation companies, famous hoteliers, just general people in town, including modern ones. Modern politics in BC is all about American influence now. Although it's hidden by the media, which happens to be American owned. Isn't that interesting, huh? Yeah, but that's fine. We're part of North America. Manifest Destiny has us under a chokehold, That's fine. That's fine. I love my mountain country. So I'm going to share its history with you, and, I'm going to do my little Patreon clip now. I haven't started my Patreon yet, but when the time comes, please help me out. I'm going to do a little GoFundMe first to get me some dentures for that reason. And also to make up for the loss of a GoPro the other day I bought, but BC Transit tells me it might come back to lost property this week. A lot of valuable stuff often does. So when I get that, then I get my little new old laptop, and see if I have enough money left for an acoustic guitar, but there'll be one around the canyon. But yeah, I just was making my pancakes, and I like Bright Light's video, and then he started going on about how the conservatives, and then went off to Graham Hancock, wham, 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 the crybaby shit, Grow up, kids. You're dealing with a conservative establishment that takes years to revise the history books. Do you think, I got ancient history in my grade 7, 8 school books in 1967, 68? Do you think anything, the school books the kids have now already have Göbekli Tepe in them? Do they think they already have things like the Hiawatha? No, they don't. And the scientific community, have they relinquished the idea of the ice-free corridor yet? No, they haven't. But we know that the Laurentian ice sheet and the Cordilleran ice sheet, well, unless there was a gap on the lee of the Rockies, which is conceivable, but I doubt it. Lee of the Rockies and up over the Yukon, the Pelly, that's the theory of the route. But show me the glacial proof. They never show you the glacial proof because they're not glaciologists. This is the problem with specialization in academia. It's why I don't have a degree and why I call myself the unprofessor. So this is my own little whine, right? That I wasn't able to finish my degrees. Not music for the same reason, but my Bachelor of General Studies, because it didn't have to have a major when I was in it. Now you have to have two. But in academia, everybody has to specialize, never mind about all the credits you need to graduate of this minor and that minor and all that shit, but just to get an upper level degree, it's all about, well, you assume that you want to teach, and then so you assume that you want tenure. So if you get a qualifying year MA, which I conceivably could, nobody will respect you in the academic community. You won't be hired. Did I say I wanted to be? The academic community where having tenure means you have to keep your mouth shut about what your other professors in the same department are saying? Oh, give me a break. No, I'm the unprofessor. I'm from the Colleges of Unreason. No, not the Colleges of Unreason. That's Wikipedia. The College of Unlearning. Unlearning what you thought you knew. I'm the unprofessor from the College of Unlearning. That's it now. That's my gag, and that's what people all do out of Canyon Alpine. That's the name of the community I'm moving to, which is near Boston Bar, which Boston means American, and it was the heart of the gold rush, one of the hearts of the gold rush of 1858 that founded the colony. Also one of the sites of the Canyon War. Not a battle or anything, just as they were heading up the canyon, it wound up being a truce. And if it hadn't been a truce, and the Americans had been wiped out, and the French troops with them, the Border Commission troops were in Skagit area, where Ross Lake is now, I think at the time, very nearby the gold rush. It was 2,000 troops or something like that. Well, that would not be a British Columbia if that had happened. So thank you to Captain Snyder, and thank you to Chief Smitlam for this not being the state of whatever the Americans wanted to call it. Monroe, I don't know. So I don't know. They'd name it after a president. Not Jefferson or Franklin. I don't know, but they were going to name maybe Jefferson. I can't remember what it was, but they did have a name for it. But that's a whole period of BC history that my friend Dan Marshall is researching about. Something that I'm researching on it too when I get a chance to settle down. And most archives can be accessed digitally. If you have to order copies, that's fine. But I'm going to be living somewhere nice, not full of snooty people, and with a big field out back and some happy dogs and an organic garden and some mountains around me and woods and not the sound of rain. Anyway, so I love where I'm moving to. I love doing this vlogging now. I lost my selfie stick somewhere, or it's misplaced in my house, maybe my friend Carla's car, or here somewhere when I came in. But I didn't have it with me when I was Dave in Boston Bar in Calgary Canyon, Alpine Hope. So, anyways, you have a very pleasant day. And Bright Light, I don't mean to dress you down too hard, man. I like your information in your video. Just stop whining about the establishment, man. Whining about the establishment does not help you overcome it. How you overcome it is by presenting the facts and just saying, well, what do you think? Here's the logic of it, right? The Hiawatha impact hits. Eventually, it causes the Davis Strait ice dam to build. There's an initial flood. There's a darkening. The later dry ice is what they call it. That little mini ice age that we had. And then there was this period that it took up time for Davis Strait to break, and boom, another phase. It was a multiple stage event. It took a while for the ice to melt. Conditions built for that ice dam to melt, because remember it was a marine ice dam, so there'd be seawater underneath. So water from behind it would work to undermine it, but it might take a while. And then when it did break, it would be a cataclysm, like a worldwide flood. Now, the other one that's pending right now, oh, God help us all. Now, Greenland alone is 60 meters where it all to melt. Okay, so the height of Ruskin Dam, where I was raised, is 104 feet. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars rebuilding it. That was stupid, wasn't it? Anyway, but the real scary one now, scarier than the Lulu Island flood that will devastate the Lower Mainland when Lulu Island collapses, right? Way scarier than that, is the Thwaites Glacier and the Pine Island Glacier in Antarctica hold back the West Antarctic ice sheet, which is all of them are being undermined by warmer water from beneath because the oceans are warming. When the ice sheet collapses, when the Thwaites Glacier collapses and breaks away on the Pine, which is going to happen, then the West Antarctic ice sheet does not have the tensile strength or something that they theorize that it will collapse, and it will break up, and then it holds up a whole series of mountains, and there'll be falls of these mountains into the water. But that'll also cause mega tsunamis regionally, like around the southern hemisphere. Some of them big ones, like how the Las Palmas and the Canaries can wipe out New York and so on. In 8 hours with a 400-foot wave, something bizarre like that, right? But when the West Antarctic ice sheet collapses, it's like the Lulu Island collapse at the mouth of the Fraser River, which will dissolve and cause a flood that up in Canyon Alpine, I was told they've studied it. It will come up to be somewhere between Yale and Alexandria. It will wipe out everything else downstream. Yeah, okay, I don't want to go on and talk about that devastation. Right, but if the West Antarctic ice sheet goes and it collapses in, the rest of the world's oceans will rush in to fill where it was. I saw a scientific thing on this. It was like of the same order of the methane thing. It was a scientific video, and this is what these people who are watching the junk videos, like the Enki comet one that was about the Hiawatha, which was so much garbage, the guys just started talking to each other. People are watching that instead of actually reading the scientific material to say, oh, okay, so if the West Antarctic ice sheet collapses, the Southern Ocean will rush into it and cause like the same idea as the Lulu Island. When you flush a toilet and something, or you stuff something and there's a splash comes up in the middle, it's that kind of thing, right? The pulse in the water will hit all the world's oceans after the Southern Ocean rushes in to fill the hole in the West Antarctica. The West Antarctic Ocean will be born, or sea, or whatever we'll call it. But there will be a pulse in the water all the way, it will hit the Arctic Ocean all the way to the North Pole, and everything along the coastline. So folks, we live on a really volatile planet. It's not just about the climate, folks. Earth has, not just Earth, but space, has things that were reminding us how mortal we are. And the Hiawatha crater is one. This happened during the Holocene. This happened during human memory. It happened during human mythology. Our mythologies remember it. Worldwide, they remember it in one way or another. All mythologies are true. This is why, as a mythologist, I have to be a scientist to say, well, what's true in the mythologies? Well, take them at face value, because oral history preserves details of time and space, you know? It preserves details of events and ties them together in certain ways, right? Now, it's pretty obvious now that all holy books are true when they talk about their origins, and same with all the native myths here. Myths, stories, native stories. The word term myth has acquired this meaning of untruth, but it's not myth. Myth just means truth told in a coalesced way, something like poetry. And poetry is often how myth is expressed the same way I do when I'm in my poetry, they call it. You know, I don't like that term, even though it means something that was created. Something, poesis means to create. It's the process of whether you're a musician or whatever. Poesis is the act of creation. Anyways, I could go on about all that, but I wanted to talk about the Hiawatha. I wanted to talk about the Hiawatha crater itself also, but I did want to talk about the videos I'm getting tired of seeing from everybody going on about the scientific community. Just present the evidence, you know, make them listen. Don't make them turn you off like I just did. To you, too many of you. I stopped listening now. Same with reports on the Gilets jaunes who are trying to present it as something like it's not. Who are trying to co-opt it for right-wing causes or talk about conspiracies and shit like that instead of presenting what the Gilets jaunes are talking. People, you got to read through the news. Also, always go to the source. But also, all think about all fields, every single field. Forget about the degree path, what you learn in your degree. You know, always study outside. If you're studying for a specialization, always study outside your specialization. I know too many doctorates who only knew about their one little tiny thing. I could start naming the politicians, right, who are like that here in BC. They're specialists in one little thing. They start making pronouncements on things that have nothing to do with their field. They get headlines. Oh, give me a break. And it's usually conservative bullshit shit. Anyway, I'll leave that as what it is. If you vloggers think you have things to complain about, you know nothing about the unreality of the way things are in British Columbia or how the media and politics here are. So that's the Fraser River again. Where am I now? Or that's looking towards the house behind me. And then that's the condo behind me. And that is the Fraser River. And yeah, I've liked it here. I've been lucky to live here. I've had a nice porch, but I've got a sort of a little veranda there and nice willows and some big fields. And I'll see what the neighbors are like. Apparently they're like weirdo religious people, and all the stuff, all they're flashing on their car is red and white stripping is to tell the aliens where they are. Okay, I'm gonna have interesting neighbors and a few others. And I got a big field, some nice dogs. I got mountains in the morning. I can play music whenever I want. We'll see how the neighbors like it. I won't care. Yeah, this is from Port Haney in Kwantlen Territory of the Stolen Nation in the unsurrendered territories formerly known as British Columbia, or which should be formerly known as British Columbia. Maybe we'll get around to that someday. Have a good day. This is the Unprofessor signing off. Big Skookum 1, Mike Clevin. I don't know which name to use. I've got other names possible. Have a nice day. I don't know how to turn this off. Okay, Skookum 1 signing off.